Hello, everyone. Welcome to Functionally Enlightened podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Sharon Surita, and today we're thrilled to introduce our special guest, testosterone. Chris is an entrepreneur, a self-healing coach, and the author of 3 insightful books, including Hernia Without Surgery, which I'm really excited to hear about, Natural Testosterone After 60, and Belonging to Yourself. Chris has been an avid athlete for most of his life with a passion for health and fitness that started early. His journey has been filled with ups and downs, prompting him into deep introspection and a transformative shift into a relationship with himself, really. He shares these profound experiences in his book, Belonging to Yourself, highlighting the importance of self healing and growth. He was born and raised in New York City, and he spent over 4 years in leadership roles, mentoring people in the business world, particularly within unions. His extensive experience in helping and organizing members it has made a significant impact on many lives. So, Chris, again, we want to thank you for joining us today, and we're really excited to hear about all of the work and your journey into the wellness space. So, maybe we could start there. How did you transition, or maybe you're still kind of fulfilling all of these roles together?
Well, first, I want to thank you for having me on your show. And my journey, where would you like me to start with the journey?
I'm kind of curious as to if you're a health coach now or a self-healing coach, as you say,
Correct.
and then also having this business experience, if you're kind of combining them together, or are you focusing more on one versus the other?
Well, I'm semi-retired. I've been in business for over 40 years in a leadership position. I help many people with various situations in their life besides putting them to work. I was also acting I'm not a therapist, I'm not a doctor, but I acted like I was a therapist. And many people used to come sit with me and I would, help them. Now that I'm semi-retired, I can focus more on people who need, specific help.
Yeah, that sounds good. So let's go into one of the first book that I want to talk about, Hernia Without Surgery. Now, this is
Okay.
one that's probably a lot of our listeners are going to be really interested in this because we've been through the ringer, and I myself had the hernia repair with mesh and kind of developed all these autoimmune or autoinflammatory conditions from that. So, can you
Right.
share with us your experience? I know this is a self-healing experience as well.
Yes, sure. Of course. Okay, so I'm 65 years old. When I was 52 years old, I've always been in the gym. That's how I got my hernia at 52. So I have my hernia 14 years. Once I saw the lump in my groin area, inguinal hernia, I went to the doctor, conventional doctor, and he looked at it and says, "Oh, you got a hernia." I said, "Okay." Make a long story short, he says, "We'll set you up for surgery next week." I said, "No, I'm not getting surgery." He says, "What do you mean? You have to." I said, "I don't want surgery. I'll get back to you." I told the doctor, "I'll get back to you." So I kind of like sorted it out, First, I had to accept that I got the hernia because I've been an athlete all my life. This was the first time I had, an injury like this. So the first step is accepting it. After that, I said, okay, I'm not going to get surgery, so I need to do extensive research of how I'm going to live with this hernia. And that's what I did. So I did the extensive work and I come up with my own program, which I wrote about. The book is actually, I wrote the book very simple. I think a fifth grader could read the book. I just wanted to share the steps, how you can live with the hernia, how you can minimize the lump, the protruding lump that comes past your skin. My hernia today, if anyone was to see it, besides myself, my wife, it's maybe the size of a little marble now, but it was about that big, about 3 inches. Now it's about the size of a marble. So what I did was I started with Epsom salt baths. I was taking Epsom salt baths for about 30, 40 days straight, every single day. And while I took the bath, I would massage the hernia down because what I learned actually from another doctor. When you massage the muscle around an injury, you will strengthen those muscles around the injury that you have. And I said, okay. And he says, and there's a possibility the muscle will contract, will come together, and it'll minimize the lump of your hernia. And that's what I did. So I kept massaging every day. I mean, every moment I had to massage, I would always massage down and push it in. That's what I did. I always massage it down and pushed it in. Another thing I did was I wore a hernia belt from the moment I woke up in the morning to the moment I went to bed at night. So I wore the hernia belt, I don't know, 17, 18 hours during the day. I would wrap it nice and tight. I actually have a hernia belt here to show you. This is the belt. This here goes against the lump. You wrap it around your waist and you tighten it up nice and tight, because now you're training the hernia. You're pushing it in to train it. This is where you belong. You don't belong out here. You belong in here. So I wore that belt for about 40 to 50 days straight. I mean, and the hernia was looking so good. So I was telling my wife, as this was going on, I go, wow, this is really incredible. It's working. I said, look at my hernia. I just show her, look at my hernia. Look how low it is. Look. And she was like, yeah, okay, we're going to keep doing it. So that was another thing I did. So the Epsom salt baths, the massaging. I have another item here. This is all natural. This is magnesium. It's all natural from the ocean. It's on my website. If anyone wants to see it, you can go to my website and see it. It's probably the best item that I ever had in my life. You spray a couple of sprays, even if you don't have a hernia and you want to put some magnesium in your body, spray your body. The founder of this, he was on every supplement you can think of. When he found his solution, he passed it on to me. It's on my website. It's just incredible. So I spray the hernia every morning, 3 sprays. When I go to bed at night, 3 sprays, calms it down, because a hernia will inflame. It'll inflame if you lift something heavy, if you're not careful, if you got a lot of stress, the hernia will act up. It'll get inflamed. So if it gets inflamed, you could spray it with magnesium, or you could take a magnesium supplement, or you could take some turmeric. So these are the things that will work to prevent the hernia from irritating you or any pain. So if you suffer from a lot of pain, I would recommend you go see a doctor. But if you don't have any pain and you don't want surgery, these are some of the techniques that I do. So it's magnesium, massaging, Epsom salt baths. So 14 years later, which is now, I've been living with a hernia. I go to a gym. I still lift weights. I don't lift the weights that I used to lift because there's no need to. And by the way, there was no need to lift those weights back then anyway. I wasn't competing in a bodybuilding contest. It was just, they call that ego lifting. So I'm past all that. So if you're careful, you don't lift anything heavy, you can exercise. On my website and my YouTube channel, I'm putting out content to show you the right way to exercise with a hernia. Even the right way to exercise, but especially more with a hernia. Things not to do and things that you should do.
That piece
Sure.
would be really helpful for our listeners. I know that that's something that's not really discussed. We get referrals to physical therapy, and even sometimes the physical therapists aren't really aware of the limitations or where we should be more careful so that we don't inflame the area, as you say, or cause any other tearing to happen. So that's going to be a really good piece to share with our audience.
Sure, yeah. And it's important that, when you do exercise, with what I figured out on my own, because I'm my own person who tries different things. All the exercises I do, I make sure I take pressure off my abdominals and my lower hernia. I make sure there's no pressure at all on that. Before, when I was working out with the hernia, I realized that I was making it worse because I was putting pressure on it. So the idea is don't put the pressure on it. So I've been putting content out. I'll have a lot more content out because I'm working on this really strongly to help people. So again, avoid. Here's another thing that we should avoid: eating in foods that will cause inflammation will also act up your hernia. So I've been a connoisseur for eating healthy for a very long time. So I don't, in that area, I don't have a problem. So things that cause inflammation would be dairy, fried foods, just eating unhealthy foods will also disturb the hernia. So try not to eat fried food. Sugar would be number one. If you can eliminate sugar from your life, sugar is the worst thing for you. We all know that today. It's all over YouTube channels. And dairy. So if you can eliminate those three things, fried food, sugar, and dairy, you will release some of the inflammation that's in your body.
What are your thoughts on gluten? I know that that's one of the compounds or proteins that we're looking at, and that we see that regardless if someone's celiac or not, it does cause an immune response whenever it's tested, whenever whole blood is tested.
Oh, of course, of course. I'm gluten free. You know, yeah. To answer your question, I don't go near gluten.
And then, so we know that sugar, definitely that goes along with the blood sugar regulation, or dysregulation, we could call it. But
Right.
eliminating the sugar, eliminating dairy or other inflammatory foods. And then there's the other components. I know, I don't know what the people you work with, but a lot of the people I work with, they have all these sensitivities to different types of foods. So we
Yeah.
know that there are immune responses depending on if they have this leaky gut, what they call it.
Right.
So if they have leaky gut and they're developing more and more food sensitivities, they kind of have to navigate that and tame that inflammation. And with a hernia, like you mentioned, it's going to make the symptoms a lot worse if you have an inflamed gut. And we talk about healthy gut, healthy life all the time.
Of
So
course.
what are some other things that you do bring into your diet so that you can kind of have that antioxidant effect?
Okay. So every morning I drink a glass, I'm going to say between 8 and 10 ounces of homemade aloe vera. I make it myself. So what I do is I buy 2 plants. You wash them really good, slice them up, put them in a 1 gallon empty bottle or jar, fill it with all the pieces that you cut of the aloe vera, fill it with good water, not water from the sink, and fill it, put it in the refrigerator for about, I'm going to say about 8 hours, or a day. Okay. And every morning I pour myself a glass of homemade aloe vera. Now, the reason for it is what you said: gut health, anti-aging, vitamin C, detoxification, antioxidant. It's got so many benefits, So if anyone listening to this podcast, Google it, read up on aloe vera. Make it yourself. Don't buy it in the store because they put things inside of it. This is 100% great for you. Drinking aloe vera.
And it doesn't sound like it's too difficult to make. Maybe
Oh,
is it difficult to source the aloe?
no, not at all. Not at all. It, it won't last longer than 7. If you keep it in the refrigerator for 7 days, throw it away. But if you can get it, from day 1 to day 5, and you can drink it and you keep making it, it's incredible. It changed my life. Like I said, I'm 65 years old. I have the insides of a 20-year-old. Everything is running normal on the inside. My body's good on the outside. I have a 6-pack still. So, I'm going to pass this on to people. I hope I inspire you. There's one thing that I want to touch on, Sharon, was the stress. You got to keep the stress level down, okay? Naturally. If you can't do it naturally, don't go to a pharmacy. I would recommend ashwagandha. This, I'm sure you heard of it, Sharon, but this is great for stress. all natural. It's, from China, old American history. So yeah, stress will kill you. That's for sure.
Right. So ashwagandha is the taming herb, and then we have maca, which is more the excitatory one. But they're both very good for managing that cortisol response in the body. So
Sure.
sometimes people do feel wound up, but they have already low cortisol values or cortisol response. We'll say they're waking up in fatigue because they've been under stress for so long. So
It's
then
true.
that's why working with a healthcare practitioner or a holistic practitioner is good, because not only can they look at you at your symptoms and evaluate you using clinical correlation, but they can also look at your labs and try to see where the missing pieces are, or
Mhm.
how they can help to rebalance the body. I like that you brought that up. The stress is the main one. Can you
Oh,
talk to us a little bit about the different forms of stress that we should be really working to kind of balance in our daily life?
well, one is most people stress out about paying their bills. You know, maybe their kids, whatever their stress levels are. I mean, I guess traffic would be you get stressed in traffic. Your kids can stress you out. You can have a moment at work if you're working with your boss and he stressed you out, or people just around you. So, you have to make adjustments of how you can eliminate, the stress from your life. So whether it's people causing the stress, then you got to eliminate them from your life. If it's your job, go look for another job, or go work for yourself. If it's paying the bills, you got to figure out how you can make more money, or lower the bills. Just certain things you got to figure out on your own how to get around it. You know, I have stress. I don't want to act like I don't have stress. Of course I have stress, but I know how to manage it. So, ashwagandha is one of them. I don't know if you heard of this. It's called shalachit. This is from India. This is another all natural root, plant based, that will lower the cortisol.
Very good. And again, for people, they're wanting to try these. And a lot of people do try, and they do the self-treatment, and that's fine, but always be mindful of, other things that you may be taking, also the lifestyle and the diet and the exercise piece. All of those things probably should be above supplementation, but definitely all of it factors in for somebody to be in optimal health. So Chris, before we move on to another one of your books, I kind of wanted to know, when you're using, or if you're still using the hernia belt, and what other things that you've had to incorporate so as to make sure you don't re-herniate, or actually you still do have the hernia, so you don't make it any
Okay.
worse.
Yeah. Yeah. Good question. So I don't wear the hernia belt during the day anymore. I don't need to. The only time I wear the hernia belt is when I go to the gym. So I go to the gym 4 or 5 days a week. I take 2 days off. The hernia belt is nice and tight. I make sure, do I need it at the gym? I'm going to say, yes, I do. Is when you think you don't need it, is when you're going to injure yourself again. So if you have a hernia and you're exercising, I strongly recommend, just for safety reasons, put the belt on. There's no harm. It's like a guy that puts a belt around his back so he doesn't pull his back out. It's the same thing. It's not a big deal. Just put the belt on, just for safety precautions. When you're done with your exercise at the gym, you go home, you take the belt off. It's very simple.
If you're not having any bowel perforation or strangulated bowel, then yeah, that might be a good option, especially if your symptoms are manageable and the pain isn't disturbing the quality of life. But
Nope.
unfortunately, some people aren't given the guidance and they don't know how to manage it, and then they require surgery later on down the road. So it's good
Yeah.
that you're providing this information. We appreciate the platforms that you're sharing that.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate that too. Thank you.
And Chris, can we go on to natural testosterone after 60? I do have quite a few
Sure.
clients that are maybe I think that they're more in the 50 range, so earlier 50s, but they are struggling with low
Okay.
serum testosterone. So that'd be something that they'd find interesting.
Okay, good. Okay, so the testosterone. What happened with testosterone was, when I was 50 years old, I I played around with some PEDs without a doctor's supervision. I did take testosterone when I was 50, just to escalate my level at the gym, and it worked. I went from bench pressing 225, I went to 365. It's incredible. So it's the golden juice they call it. Well, in the gym. So what happened was I took the testosterone, not realizing that by the age of 50, I'll say 58, I didn't want to take any more testosterone. So I said, okay, I'm going to get off of this, which I did. And then what happened was my body, it stops producing testosterone because you're putting this synthetic testosterone in your body. So your body says, oh, I don't have to produce testosterone because he has enough. Well, I made a big mistake by taking testosterone. Um, I'm open about it. I'm transparent. I want people to know that you should not take testosterone unless you go see your doctor first, which I did. I didn't do that. So by the time I was 58 years old, I wasn't feeling good. I was feeling like a little depressed. I felt like fatigued. I was getting tired around 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I just didn't feel like doing stuff. I said, something's wrong with me. I'm never like that. I'm full of energy. So I go get a blood test, and my testosterone level came back at 81 nanograms. 81 is terrible. 81, I'm a candidate for TRT, testosterone replacement therapy. I said, oh my God. So the doctor said, yeah, you're a candidate for TRT. I said, I don't want TRT. That's for the rest of your life. That means every week I got to take a shot. I got to worry about a heart attack. I got to worry about a stroke. My red blood cells will go up. So many things. My prostate, because it doesn't, affect your prostate. I said, nah. Same thing with the hernia when I went, no, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to figure out how to raise the testosterone on my own. So in the book, I'll show you the book. This is the book. That's me. Okay, 8 months ago, that picture. The 2 tests are in the book. The first test, it came back 81. I figured out a program on my own. No one helped me. For 8 months, I followed my program, and I went back to a holistic doctor, took full blood exam again. My testosterone level came back at 680. Went from 81 to 680. I was in the room. My wife was with me. I was like, I got to do jumping jacks. I said, I can't believe I did this. So, that's a really big jump. Just so you know, if your testosterone level is at 300 and lower, you need to go get yourself checked out because 300 is like the end. If you're below 300, yeah, you got to go get a blood test. You got to talk to your doctor on how to get your testosterone level up, or you can follow my program. So right now my testosterone level is at 700. I'm 65 years old. I don't think my testosterone level should be 700. I think it should be about 450 or 500, but it's at 700. And one of the reasons why it's at 700 is because there's certain things that I call it protocols that I do to maintain my testosterone level. So would you like me to elaborate?
Sure, yes, I'm sure our audience would like to know. And again, just before you do that, this is specifically for males in a certain age range, or what would you be recommending this to?
I would recommend this from ages from 40 to 80 years old, 85 years old. Because most men at 40, that's when you'll see naturally that testosterone drops. I think it's every decade your testosterone level drops like tremendously. So you need to go check it out. So from 40 years old, 50, 60, 70, even 80-year-olds, if you want, I'll share with you some of the steps that I mentioned in my book. One of the steps is I work on prevention a lot, things not to do. Because if you work on things not to do, that'll raise your testosterone naturally. So one thing that I really don't never do is I eat sugar. And I'll explain to you what sugar does to testosterone. Sugar raises insulin. Insulin is one of the key blockers of testosterone. Your body won't produce testosterone if your insulin level is super high. So you just shut down your productive system of testosterone. So you got to eliminate the cakes, the cookies, the sugar in your coffee or tea. You got to eliminate the sugar. So that's one step. The other step is we're going to go back to stress. Cortisol is a hormone. Cortisol is related to stress. It's a stress hormone. So you got to find out what's the best way I can lower my stress level. Because once the stress goes up, testosterone shuts down. So these are the things that I focus on to keep my production of testosterone afloat. So I worked on that, which is incredible. I keep my estrogen level down because, again, if the insulin goes up, it produces estrogen. So you got to be careful. Okay, estrogen is another blocker of testosterone. Matter of fact, if you're taking testosterone, injections, some of that testosterone will turn into estrogen. So you need to be careful. So these are all things that, I learned over the years. Now, things to do. One is you got to eat healthy. We all know that. You got to put healthy fats in your body. What are healthy fats? Brazilian nuts, pumpkin seeds, wild caught salmon only, not farm fed, wild caught. Okay, so yeah, those are some of the steps that you need to follow when it comes to food. Now, natural sunlight. It's number one in production of testosterone, natural sunlight. And if you don't, or if you can't get natural sunlight, you need to be on a powerful vitamin D. That'll boost your testosterone like that, natural vitamin D. So, yeah, so I shared some of those items. There are some supplements that I take that are all natural. If you'd like me to share them, Sharon, I will.
Sure. And just going back to the sunlight, I know that a lot of us struggle with our circadian rhythm, and we're supposed to be exposed to natural light first thing in the morning. If you can get out there and see the sunrise, which I don't know too many people who do that. I'm awake at 5 in the morning. So instead of natural sunlight, I have a sun lamp that kind of mimics it at a 10,000 lux minimum, I think.
Okay.
So I use that, but of course, I try to make it a point to get certain amounts of time outside without sunblock, getting all of the exposure that I can, and then just kind of being mindful not to get sunburned in the process. But
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
getting that sunlight is going to help regulate our circadian rhythm. And the same thing with nighttime. As the sun is setting, make sure to dim your lights, use blue light blockers if you're still on using computers and stuff like that, because that does help regulate our cortisol and melatonin production as well. So I
Right.
appreciate that piece. Yeah.
Right.
And you were going to talk to us again about some of the supplements. Is it a vitamin D3 with K2 kind of combination?
Yeah, yes, exactly. Vitamin D3. I take 10,000 IUs a day. So that's what I do. Do you need 10,000 IUs a day? All depends. After you get your blood exam, you need to check it out. I take, because I'm 65, I take 10,000 IUs. If you're younger and your testosterone's around 450, 500, you need 5,000 IUs. That's what I would recommend, 5,000 IUs. But if you need the help that I needed, I'm on 10,000 IUs a day, 5 days a week, 2 days off. Right.
Can you explain why you do this cycle like that, 5 days on, 2 days off?
I do that with everything I do. It's just something that I do, Same thing, I do it with omega-3. 5 days on, 2 days off, omega-3. I do that with every supplement that I take. It's 5 days on, 2 days off.
Yeah, I think that kind of makes sense because even supplements can be a stressor on our liver and kidneys. So we have to give our organ systems a little break, even though, the vitamins are needed in our body to manufacture and to be able to shuttle around the nutrients wherever we need them to go. So yeah, for sure. I know with the adaptogens like the ashwagandha, it's also recommended not to stay on them long term. So by
Correct.
doing that kind of cyclical dosage, that might alleviate that issue that's coming up.
Correct. You're right. 100%.
So a lot of our listeners will take that, and then it's always important to make sure you are checking your vitamin D serum in the labs. There's optimal ranges, and then there's the Western medicine ranges. I like to see between 50 and 80 in there, but again,
Hmm.
it's really dependent on how the person is feeling and making sure that all the cofactors are there as well. So
Right.
Chris, would you like to talk to us about your other book? This one is more of a personal nature. Does it take a deep dive into
And
to
here's the cover. Belonging to Yourself is a memoir about my life since I was a child. So that was a tough book to write. Man, my God, that was a tough book to write because when I first started writing the book, I said to my wife, I said, "My God, who would want this life?" She looked at me and said, "You have this life. If you didn't have this life, you wouldn't be the person you are today." So I started crying when I heard that. And I said, "You're right. I wouldn't be the person who I am today." So she goes, "No, finish writing the book. You have to write this book." And I did. She pushed me to write the book about my life. I think it's chapter 16 in that book. Biggest betrayal of my life came from a family member.
I'm curious.
So,
How do
was
you
that?
end I'm curious how you end a book like that where you're kind of going through emotions, and I'm sure there's highlights in there too, but how are you going to end that book?
Well, I end the book by all the steps that you need to do when you're faced with all these adversities in life and losses and traumas. I explain how to get through it. Always always have gratitude. Be gratitude, that you're here. I'm grateful that I'm here talking to you now. Just have gratitude. Set goals for yourself. Learn to love yourself first before you can love somebody else. I've always I always loved you first. I never loved myself first. I would love you first. But yeah, just it takes some swinging away to learn what I have learned in life.
Yes,
You
I
know,
do believe a lot of our listeners probably have experienced that themselves. They got the type A personality where they have that drive, that go get 'em type of thing where you have to set your goals, you stick to them, you have to achieve them, and if you don't, you beat yourself up about it. But I think
right,
it takes a lot of um, rep- repetition, we'll say, because we just don't learn. We just want to keep going in that mode. We feel like if we're not producing, we're not worthy. And then, like you said, when you endure so much, you finally have to take a step back and you have to prioritize. You have to realize you are worthy no matter what. Like I don't know if you're a spiritual person, but I'm very spiritual.
I'm very spiritual.
So, I mean, there's a higher purpose, and what you did with your life was and a lot of our listeners can relate, is you're bringing purpose to the pain and you're sharing the story because we're all on different walks of life and we can learn from each other. We can learn from everyone we're around if we allow ourselves to sit there and listen and to
Hmm.
just kind of take a step back, think out at the outside of the box and, put the other shoe on. So, before we end, I just wanted to turn it back to you to see if there's anything, if there's one thing that stands out in your mind that you would like to impart to our listeners, like what would that one piece of advice be?
Be true to yourself. You, you have to be true to yourself. Yeah, that's the path. You got to be true to yourself and just be grateful. That's the only thing I could say, is be true to yourself, self-love, true to yourself. If you can help somebody, help them, but make sure you help yourself first.
So very good act of wisdom there. So we appreciate your time, Chris. Again, thank you so much for sharing your stories and your
Thank
insights
you.
on all the books. We'll make sure to include your website in the show notes. But if there's another way or any way you can have people reach out to you, where could they find you?
Healingwarriors.com. All my information's there. I would love to help anybody who needs the help. If they want to talk to me, I'd be more than happy to talk to them.
Sounds good. We'll include that in our show notes. And again, thank you, Chris.
Okay, thank
To
you,
all of our
Sharon.
listeners.
Okay, bye for now.